You're listening to WTMFI 67.42 FM Chicago.
Good evening, all you weird and wonderful beings, and welcome to WTMFI 67.42 FM Chicago. This is TJ Fanpool, aka Turbo TJ, reporting to you live on TikTok. Tonight, WTMFI is your resource for Star Wars Facts of the Day weekly review. During the week, we bring you a Star Wars fact Monday through Friday. Then on Sunday, we do a live review of all the facts, bringing you all the information we have researched from StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com. I hope you'll stick around with us through this show and take part in the chat at the end. Now, a little bit about your host, me! I'm a diehard Star Wars fan, but not just the movies of the original trilogy. I have been following Star Wars since I was a kid, starting with the original trilogy, but I didn't lose that interest at the end. My passion for Star Wars made it part of my whole self, and I fueled that with books, comics, and reading that would expand my knowledge and lore of the Star Wars universe. I collected the toys, I collected the books, I collected all the figures and all the pieces that I could possibly find, and had an extensive library of books and comics to chronicle my entire knowledge. And then Disney purchased the entire IP, and most of that became non-canon. But that did not stop me or deter me from continuing with my fandom of Star Wars, and I continue it to this day. Because Star Wars is not just a fandom, it's not just a movie, it's not just a theme, it is a lifestyle, and I jumped headlong into it, and I love it with every fiber of my being. So, I hope you will all continue to follow and enjoy my broadcast that I'm going to be doing for the most part of this evening. And it's going to be basically focusing on the Star Wars facts of this week, but all of the facts that I broadcast about are available for viewing and listening on my account that is linked. I have it on a separate for all the chronicles. They will be available on my profile, so you can definitely listen to all of my ranting and all my comments and all that kind of stuff to your heart's content. Can't sleep. Thank you so much for coming in. I hope you're having a good evening. I'm not 100% sure, but happy Mother's Day for you. If you are a mother, I don't know you well enough to actually for sure. I think you might have mentioned it once, but I'm blanking on it right now. I'm still catching up. I'm running so far behind because I was out with dinner with my wife and son, so I'm having trouble keeping track of it. You're welcome. Thanks for coming in. I was hoping to have a few more, but I know I'm running almost 30 minutes behind on my normal time. Oh, you do have. I thought that was you. I keep getting, to be perfectly honest, I get a lot of my followers mixed up. So I try to keep track of everybody as best I can. But unfortunately, me having the mental illnesses that I have, short-term memory loss, unfortunately, is one of them. So I have trouble keeping track of everything. So I apologize if I screw that up or anything like that. So let's see. Just going to take a few more minutes and see if anybody else comes in before I get started. So how have you been? Is everything going all right? I think I saw you on last night. I'm not sure for my live. So I wasn't sure if you were still on for something. Unfortunately, I have not been able to go live this week. Live for me has been a challenge just because of work. So it makes it really difficult for me to get online sometimes. So every once I finally was able to get on the other night, and I was actually able to enjoy playing some Minecraft for the first time in a while. So that was enjoyable. Lady Deadpool, welcome in. Thanks again for stopping by my live yesterday. So okay, I've been super tired lately. I'm doing good. I'm actually rested up. I got out of work early yesterday, which is why I was able to go live playing Minecraft. So I'm finally recovering a little bit. My back is still sore because of my job, but that's honestly to be expected. I'm dealing with 2 herniated discs that I got back in 2001. So I'm naturally, dealing with pain and constantly having to take Advil and stuff like that while on the job. I'm doing good, Lady Deadpool. Thanks for stopping in and joining the live. I just went through my spiel with Can't Sleep. By the way, Can't Sleep Clown. This is Lady Deadpool. Lady Deadpool, Can't Sleep Clown. So I was just rehashing about the last few days, and I went through my whole WTMFI spiel. So definitely something to check out. On the other ones, I've been modifying the spiel that I go into at the start of my Star Wars Facts of the Day, so that way I have kind of a source for my voice to actually practice and get myself. Oh, good. I'm glad you guys are getting along. First time meetings are always fun, especially when it's through another friend. Oh, excuse me. God, I gotta drink some water. Okay. So let's see. Well, I'm just gonna get started. So let's. Ooh, shoot! I just got hit with the warning. Oh, not sure why. Okay, so let's get started with the facts of the week, or facts of the day for this week. So starting with fact number 1. Star Wars fact of the day: May the 4th be with you. Known as Star Wars Day is a reference to May the Force be with you. The phrase dates back to 1979 when Margaret Thatcher was elected Prime Minister of the United Kingdom. Her party took out a newspaper ad in the London Evening News that said, "May the 4th be with you, Maggie. Congratulations." On May 2nd, 2009, the state of California's legislature voted and officially declared May 4th as Star Wars Day in recognition of Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opening later in the month of May. Every May 4th, unofficially, fans around the world exchange the pun-turning rally cry, "May the 4th be with you," a play on the franchise's iconic phrase, "May the Force be with you." The date has been embraced by Lucasfilm and the Walt Disney Company as an annual celebration of Star Wars. Now, me personally, I was enjoying May the 4th be with you all the way back in college. There were still a lot of fans like me who were still, diehard Star Wars fans. We were reading the books and getting into the stuff. And May the 4th just, honestly, it became an internet meme. That's where it really started out as. And Star Wars fans started taking part in it on a regular basis. People would come into work wearing the costumes and stuff like that, or showing off their toys. There, even for a while before Galaxy's Edge, people were doing live broadcasts on May 4th about Star Wars Day and just celebrating Star Wars. And it really, I think, started well before that, because there were... because Lucasfilm obviously had made, the Star Wars films available. And until, The Phantom Menace came out, there were a lot of TV stations that were re-airing the trilogy. And one of the ones was on May 4th because the meme was popular enough that it actually became a thing for a lot of cable stations and stuff like that, where if they had the license, they would re-show the original trilogy. Now, of course, when Phantom Menace came out and all the prequels movies came out, of course, it became just as popular. So they were airing all that kind of stuff. Now, the unfortunate thing is that because this was before... John, welcome in. Or Jen, sorry. Sorry about that. It came up so quick. Sorry about that. But as the beginning of... the purchase by Disney, it really became a bigger thing because more Star Wars stuff was available. And of course, the re-releases of the classics like the Ewok Adventure and Battle of Endor, Droids and Ewoks Saturday morning cartoon. And of course, we had Clone Wars by then, and the Genndy Tartakovsky Clone Wars that was released just before Revenge of the Sith. So there was a lot of Star Wars fandom that had started up. And of course, the toys, the Lego sets, all that stuff was really going well. So, of course, saw that here on May the 4th. Pretty cool. Yeah. So, May the 4th has always been a really big thing. Blessing, welcome in. So, May the 4th has been, for me, I have always celebrated it, especially in the last few years, just because it's a lot of fun. I always wear, Star Wars material. I've got my Star Wars hat, my hoodie, my Rogue Squadron jersey, and a bunch of other stuff that I always wear. Because I always think it's fun because it's, a time when you can actually enjoy. And last year, I did the Lego build during the broadcast, and I did it this year. I did the Star Wars logo, which I actually have that sitting here with me right here. So let me make sure I think that's right. Let me get my camera back up to double check. So, maybe not. Okay, so you might have to back up a little bit. So there we go. So I actually got this finished up. I haven't gotten the parts yet. There were 3 pieces that were actually missing from it. So it's right here on the top of the W. And same thing on the other side. And on the R on the back, there was this little bit that's missing right here. So I already contacted Lego, and they've already sent out the pieces. They said it was going to be about 15 days. So once that gets on, I'll update with a video showing that off. So yeah, so that's something I've always enjoyed doing. Fowl, welcome in. It's something I've always enjoyed doing for May the 4th is taking part in a live thing. And since I did the Ghost and the Phantom, now the Star Wars emblem, I'm not sure what I'm going to do next year. It depends upon what I get in regards to the Star Wars Lego sets. I like doing the Legos because that fills up the time. So that way I can actually get through a couple things. I mean, when I did the Ghost and the Phantom last year, it took me 2 sessions to actually get it done. I actually got through both Empire Strikes Back, the original, A New Hope, and I got the majority of the way through Return of the Jedi. So I ended up watching the rest of it. I forgot to download a copy of it, but eventually I got the whole thing done. So I saw that, yeah. So it's a lot. It's honestly something that I've wanted to do more with it. I'm hoping one of the times when May the 4th comes around, I can actually spend it in Disney World at Galaxy's Edge, because I have yet to go to Galaxy's Edge. Unfortunately, finances have not been in the way that I'm able to do it. I've been wanting to go ever since I first heard about them opening it up, but unfortunately, I haven't been able to. I'm hoping to get there some year in the future, because also my wife and my kid neither of them have ever been to Disney World. Me personally, I went to Disney World back when I was a teenager. So I'd really like to take my family now with me. My son's never been there. My wife's never been there. I really want to take them so they can experience it. And it's always an enjoyment for me. And I'm hoping to do that for May the 4th at some point in time. So however you guys enjoy spending May the 4th, I always recommend, if you have to work, then if you can stream one of the movies with yourself or just dress up in something, there's plenty of fashion design things that you can do where you just dress up for May the 4th. I always recommend for anybody who's a fan of the movies to just let your freak flag fly. Go out and just dress up for Star Wars Day. It's a lot of fun, and people will compliment you on it because there's plenty of people out there who love Star Wars and would gladly support you on that. Okay, moving on. Next fact of the day. So, Star Wars fact of the day, Tibanna gas. A highly reactive gas, Tibanna is a valuable resource with varied uses. This includes in a ship's hyperdrive, a coolant for repulsor lifts, supercharging enemy energy bolts for blasters, and starship weapons. It is able to exist in liquid and gaseous form. Its greatest use is as fuel, for which it was particularly notable. Due to its highly combustible nature, there have been multiple variations of transportation and storage technology designed for this gas. One of the most efficient forms is freezing the Tibanna through carbonite. This gas is only able to be mined on 2 locations, Anowitz and Kildor systems. The most notable location in the Noise system is the Bespin Cloud City. Bespin has had its share of governance, but its most iconic was during the governance under Lando Calrissian, where he was able to stabilize the production of Tibanna gas and ensure that it stayed out of the control of the Empire. This allowed for a stay in production and maintenance of the fuel industry throughout the galaxy. Now, I just really wanted to do this because as I was watching for May the 4th, as I was watching the original trilogy, there was stuff that came up that it had always been background noise, but it was that conversation that Han, Leia, and Lando have when they first arrive in Bespin Cloud City. And they were talking about the Tibanna gas and all that kind of stuff. And I remember them saying something about the mining union. And I started thinking about, unions and stuff like that. That's something that's actually discussed regularly. So I thought, I'd actually like to take it out. Crimson, welcome in. And I wanted to actually figure out more about that. So I started doing some research and I found out, and it really hit me. I was like, oh yeah, Tibanna gas, because it was actually featured in a lot of the Star Wars video games. Like, primary example is Star Wars Rogue Squadron, which was a console game that came out back in the 90s, late 90s, early 2000s. And it was a really popular game for a lot of Star Wars fans because the majority of the Star Wars games that originally became weren't available for consoles. They were like, the side-scroller games like Super Star Wars, Super Empire Strikes Back, Super Return of the Jedi. Those were available for like Super Nintendo, Sega Genesis, but the really in-depth games were not available for the consoles. The only way you could actually play games like that was Star Wars like X-Wing and Star Wars TIE Fighter. There was also there was the original Star Wars Dark Forces, which was a first-person shooter. And then, of course, there was The Force Unleashed that came out. There were a bunch of Star Wars games that came out. Mike Honcho, welcome up. What's going on? So we're going through Star Wars Fact of the Day that I post during the week. So I'm just doing the rehash. And right now we're on the Tabana gas. And it was actually used in a lot of the Star Wars video games. Like one of the more popular scenes from Star Wars Rogue Squadron. C. Philly, welcome in. They were actually using it as one of the missions where you had to attack a depot where you had to destroy a bunch of the containers of Tabana gas. Now, because they were so explosive, we were using Y-Wing fighters in order to blow them up. And the problem is that if you got too close to the blow up, it blew you up too. So it was a real challenge in the game to actually do that. And I think there were at least 3 levels where you actually took on different variations of Tabana gas, because one was in a variation of Cloud City, and then there was another that was on a planetary surface, but it was actually regularly used in the video game. So I thought it was a kind of a cool subject to bring up for the fact. So, and interesting, I should point out that there are a lot of the classic Star Wars video games are available right now. You can actually get them for a really cheap price. They're like, I don't know how much longer it's going to be like this, but right now, like Star Wars X-Wing, Star Wars TIE Fighter, Star Wars Alliance, Star Wars Dark Forces, Star Wars Force Unleashed, Star Wars Shadows of the Empire, all these video games are currently available through GOG.com, which is short for goodoldgames.com, and they're like available for like $9.99, $5.99, $3.99. They're really cheap, and because these are not remastered, but reorganized versions of the original game. So they're no longer CD-ROM games. They're basically downloadable games, which means you can download, save the games, play through the entire games. And they don't require, because they're from old CD-ROM games, they don't require a lot of storage space. So you could easily download these games and you could play them on your PC or your laptop. I think some of them you might even be able to go on a tablet, but don't quote me on that. But I highly recommend checking out GOG.com. All of the classic Star Wars games are available on there, and they're really cheap, especially because we're in May as part of May 4th. So I would highly recommend checking those out. It's simple to look up GOG.com. You can get access to all those. And I personally downloaded the original 2005 Star Wars Battlefront 2. I'm playing it right now through that. It's great, and I have really been enjoying it. I actually went with it today, and I had a server up where you just could play on the planet Hoth, which is one of my favorite levels to play on, just because you get to fly around the T-47 Snowspeeder. You get to take down the AT-ATs, one of my favorite ones. So I wanted to touch on that. Okay, next fact of the day. Star Wars fact of the day. Carbonite is a liquid substance that's made from carbon gas and can be changed into a solid through rapid freezing. Goods could be encased in carbonite for preservation through a process known as carbon freezing. Carbon freezing is an industrial process that encases highly pressurized gases inside modified carbonite. An example is condensed Tabana gas, because carbon freezing was used in a way to condense it for safe transport. Carbonite blocks could also be used to place people in hibernation. Before the invention of the hyperdrive, some early space explorers would use carbonite to endure long voyages through space. That technique, however, had brutal side effects, collectively referred to as hibernation sickness. Anakin Skywalker had used this technique in order to transport himself and his support team on a rescue mission to the Citadel prison in order to save multiple Republic prisoners. He would later use this same technique to imprison Captain Han Solo in carbonite and attempt to capture Luke Skywalker at Bespin Cloud City. So I really wanted to touch on this one because it's of its connection not only to Empire Strikes Back, but also to the original Clone Wars series, because this was, I thought, really interesting, and it's one of my favorite multi-episode parts of Clone Wars, and also because it featured not only Anakin Skywalker and Ahsoka, you also had the first appearance of Commander Tarkin, who would eventually become Governor Tarkin from Rogue One and Star Wars A New Hope. So you got his first appearance in animation form as a younger version of him. You also had an additional appearance in the episode of both ARC Trooper 5s and ARC Trooper Echo, who, as you know, were part of Domino Squad, that was part of the original Rookies series, a Rookies episode from season 1 of Star Wars Clone Wars. And of course, Echo and 5s are fan favorites that have been around for the whole series. We had Echo showing up and being part of the Bad Batch animated series. And of course, you had 5s that he was the one that exposed the Order 66 conspiracy, which, okay, thanks for stopping by, Mike. I appreciate it. And so I really wanted to touch on that because of the carbonite use in the original Empire Strikes Back, you had a reintroduction to it by, as well as Anakin also reintroducing it, because he was the one who actually used it for a mission in the Clone Wars, which I thought was a really nice homage back to Empire Strikes Back, and that, ironically, the guy who would use it to imprison someone and attempt to imprison someone for the Emperor, he then was using it to actually take on the agents of the Emperor. And I just thought that was really cool. So I really wanted to include that. And since I had already covered the Dabana gas, I always like to do a twofer with my facts, as I like to not only cover one thing, but also have something that's connected in some way to it. So I thought covering the carbonite and the Dabana gas was a good coverage, because the interesting thing is the carbonite was also used. This is something that you find out in the Legends series. A lot of the Legends books is there was an entire run in Star Wars X-Wing that actually had to do with the production of not only Tabana gas, but also Bacta, and how they were actually transported. And this is something that they really went into in that series, was the financial and economic structures that were used in the Star Wars universe, as specifically because Star Wars X-Wing chronicled a lot of the events that were leading up to the invasion and the retaking of Coruscant. Because at the time, this was still in Legends, the Rebel Alliance, even though they had destroyed the second Death Star, they hadn't reclaimed Coruscant as the center, because at that time, it was still the center of power for the entire galaxy and was still under the control of the Empire. So, in essence, there still had to be a mission to actually retake Coruscant from the Empire so that it could be part of the New Republic. And, you know, at the time, if you remember from A New Hope, that the original Republic Senate had been shut down, so the regional governors were the ones who were controlling all the planetary systems. So it was really important that they actually retake Coruscant. And the X-Wing series in the novels and in the comics, that actually chronicled that entire period. And I thought it was a really cool thing to actually have on. So I wanted to actually, keep track of that and actually really just chronicle that a little bit so I could bring it up for this. Because it's really something that a lot of people forget about in the story, that there was actually more going on in the Star Wars universe at that time. Because there was so much just turmoil that was going on, specifically because the Empire had control of pretty much everything. So you couldn't have, the establishment of the New Republic until you actually removed, as the Empire had, you had to remove the corruption that had been put in place by the Empire. So I just thought that was a really cool thing to have in there, and I wanted to actually talk about that. Okay, moving on to the next fact of the day from this past week. The Kowakian monkey lizard. I might have actually mispronounced that. I didn't have a chance to practice the pronunciation of that. These impish creatures hail from planet Kowak, are known for their shrill laughter and sophisticated senses of humor. Kowakian monkey lizards come in a variety of colors. A rare and semi-sentient reptilian creatures, they are known to travel to other planets sorry, as exotic pets, though often are used by members of the underworld as pets or as spies and informants. Due to their appearances, they were often mistaken for pests. The species is known for their shrill laughter and sophisticated sense of humor. They often are caught stealing and taunting unsuspected bypassers. However, despite their mischievous nature, Kowakian monkey lizards could give their respects and be befriended if someone managed to match their sense of humor. The Kowakians have natural curiosity and high intelligence, being able to repair a starship, commandeer a tank, wield a blaster, and mimic most languages, including Huttese and Galactic Basic, which for the layman's would be English. While they were able to mimic languages, the Kawaki monkey lizards primarily communicate through their jubilant laughter. Now, for those of you who don't know what these monkey lizards are, if you remember from Return of the Jedi, there was one of these that was actually the pet. Sparky Lady, welcome in. Was the pet of Jabba the Hutt, was sitting on Jabba's throne, and he was the one that always had that cackle that he was always giving off. And there's so many people who like these guys and who actually hate them. Now, if I remember right, that particular one was named Salacious V or B. I had it written down, but I forgot to actually make it part of this. But he was one of the creatures that was on there. Now, there are other ones that show up in Star Wars lore. In Star Wars Clone Wars, Hondo Ohnaka, he had one of the monkey lizards as they didn't exactly have parrots at the time, so it was on his shoulder. So I actually included this in one of the pictures if you want to go back and check them out. And we actually see them if you watch the Mandalorian series. There are a couple scenes where Mando comes back to Navarro, and those monkey lizards are actually there. They're like hanging in the trees and stuff like that. In fact, when Navarro was under attack from the pirates, the Kevorkian monkey lizards are actually being shot at by the pirates, and they're the ones who actually direct the Mandalorians for where the ambushes are waiting, which really shows an aspect of intelligence. And you actually see in the Clone Wars series that these guys actually are able to do repairs. They're actually able to drive vehicles and all that kind of stuff. So it's really cool. Sparky Lady, thank you for all the gifts. Thank you so much. And so this is the reason why I wanted to include them, because I always try to include at least one creature in a lot of my facts, but this one is a popular one from Star Wars, and I really wanted to include an animal that was unique, and I thought this was one of the most unique ones I could possibly include. So it was really a joy to actually research these guys, and there's a lot more information about the Kawaki monkey lizard, and I didn't want to focus on just one particular one, though I am going to go into more detail about some very specific Kawaki monkey lizards. I don't know if it'll be this week. It might be in a future one, but I want to do a little bit more research into them and find out more and what things they were actually in, because it's really interesting stuff. And again, I want to state that a lot of this stuff is based off my personal knowledge, but I do all of my facts and I pull them directly from StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com, because I want to make sure my facts are actually corroborated and you can actually look them up for yourself. So I altered the statements a little bit, but the facts are still the facts that they are. I just changed the English and stuff like that for punctuation. Also, I'm limited by how much I can put in the text window. So you can look up all these facts yourself on StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com. Wikipedia.com does have a little bit more information about legends, so it's a little bit better to read that than the others. Okay, so let's move on to the next fact. Star Wars fact of the day: T-47 Snowspeeder is a commercial vehicle manufactured by Incom Corporation, a versatile and nimble repulsor craft capable of meeting a wide variety of needs. These speeders can easily be equipped with weaponry and armor. Excuse me. The vessel was designed for civilian usage and saw use hauling sewage. Its harpoon and tow cable are often used in cargo hauling operations, and although not standard, they would go on to see service as military craft. All the same, the vessel was not a particularly maneuverable craft. A wedge-shaped vehicle, the T-47 was a two-person craft crewed by a pilot and a rear-facing tail gunner. With a top speed of 1,100 kilometers per hour, that's about Mach 1, at least in the case of its modified military form, it had two forward-facing heavy laser cannons and a harpoon cannon placed in the rear and manned by the tail gunner. After the rise of the Empire, hidden path agents used the T-47 airspeeders for extraction and aerial support on missions, assisting former Jedi and Republic sympathizers. During the duration of on Hoth, the T-47s were modified by the Rebel Alliance into snowspeeders. These snowspeeders used tow cables to disable all-terrain armored transports, or AT-ATs, walkers, by firing the tow cable and chasing it around the walker's legs, stopping its locomotion and immobilizing the walker. Once toppled, the walkers were destroyed by the T-47 forward blasters at weak points on the armor. Now, I wanted to include this, one, because Empire Strikes Back is one of my favorites Star Wars movies, mainly because of the T-47 speeder. It is by far my absolute favorite vehicle in Star Wars. I love it more than almost any other vehicle. As much as I love flying like the X-Wing and the A-Wing and the Y-Wing and all the Rebel vehicles and stuff like that, the T-47 Snowspeeder was my absolute favorite. And the main reason for that is because when I was a kid, I would watch Empire Strikes Back more than I watched. I watched Star Wars: A New Hope, the episode 4, so many times. But when Empire Strikes Back came out, I watched that one way more than I did A New Hope. Just because for me, as being a kid, I wanted to watch the really action-packed parts. And for A New Hope, you kind of had to wait for the big battle at the end of the movie, whereas Empire Strikes Back, you got the big battle at the beginning of the movie. So, and of course, you've got these little snow speeders which are flying along at high speed and going up against these big walkers, and I just absolutely love them. And I started doing, as I was doing my research, and I had such a moment of excitement in watching Obi-Wan Kenobi, the series on Disney Plus, and right in this one moment, 2 T-47 snowspeeders come in, and you hear that classic repulsor engine firing and the blasters going up. It's like right back to Empire Strikes Back. And I was so excited when I saw that. And just the enjoyment I've always had of that. And that's the reason why I was mentioning earlier that when I play Obi-Wan Kenobi, welcome in. When I was playing Battlefront 2, Star Wars Battlefront 2, that was one of my favorite scenes and battlefields to play on was the battlefield of Hoth, because I got to fly the snow speeders, and you don't get to fly the snow speeders in any of the other levels of Battlefront 2. It's the only level with the T-47 snow speeders available. So I absolutely go back and love playing that. And I was really one of many that was disappointed when the brand new versions of Star Wars Battlefront came out and the snowspeeder was not available. I do believe it was available in Star Wars Battlefront when they re-released it, but in Star Wars Battlefront 2, it was not released for the Battle of Hoth, which me and a lot of other fans were really disappointed in. And that was something that I actually was looking up, and I know some of you might have seen it, but I actually created a little music video for the T-47. It's available on my account. If you scroll down a little bit, you'll actually find it, because I really love the T-47. I love the video footage, and just the whole vehicle itself is just fun. And as a little special treat for today, I wanted to actually include it in the broadcast. So right here, I've actually got one of the micro machines. This is actually what the snowspeeder actually looks like. So I just think they look super cool, and I really love the way they actually look like this. But the real special one that I wanted to show you all is, and this is something that I've had. It is one of the few remaining toys that I had from my original Star Wars collection. I do need to emphasize that the reason why I don't have more is because my mom decided to donate my entire Star Wars collection except for a few pieces. So, and I found out, I thought she had told me that she was not going to donate them. She told them she was going to take them to my aunt's, and then I'd be able to play with them for Christmas and for holidays when we went and visited him. But it turns out she had donated all of them. So my X-Wing, my Y-Wing, my Cloud Car, my TIE Interceptor, all of my figures, all of that kind of stuff, everything was gone. You know, the original Ewok Village, Yoda's Dagobah playset, the Imperial, not the Imperial shuttle, that one I still had, but I unfortunately had to donate it. So one of the only vehicles I have left is this. This is the T-47 Snowspeeder that was originally released by Kenner. It is die-cast metal. It's actually, I can't remember for sure. They had done a whole thing of this. They had actually released, I think, the X-Wing, the TIE Fighter, I think was available, the Millennium Falcon. They were all at this small scale, but it's one of the few pieces that I actually had left over. Oh no, Obi-Wan, I was more than a little mad. I was absolutely furious. I still to this day held it against my parents for doing it. But this one I happened to have in my room at the time, and it was left behind, thankfully. But and it's a rare thing to actually find one of these. I actually did a lot of search online for them. It's really hard to actually find some of these, the original die-cast metal ones, especially in full piece. Like one of the pieces that's usually lost is this rear gun. It actually does move around. You can actually move it around and stuff like that. But it's actually really hard to find these. Like most of them have. The one piece that broke off that I had was there was a landing gear that was here. Unfortunately, that did break off. So unfortunately, I wasn't able to get that. And I could never resell this, unfortunately, because one of the things that happened with it is it had actually been packed away in something. And these two, the front lasers, were actually bent all the way back. So they had actually been squished by some stuff. So I actually had to repair these. So I actually used some crazy glue and actually glued these down. So that's taken completely away from any market value this would have. But me personally, I would never sell this in any way, shape, or form. As far as I'm concerned, this thing is going to be going into the ground with me because it is my favorite vehicle from Star Wars. And it's one of the few pieces I have left from my original collection. So, and that's why I wanted to share this. It was somebody who had actually requested that I show it off, but I actually had to search down through my collection that I got now. I do have a restarted collection of figures and vehicles and stuff like that. So I'm planning on actually showing these off at some point, but I don't really have the space to actually bring them up and show them off right now. But I will be actually showing them off. But I wanted to show this guy because I'm doing the facts, and the T-47 is my favorite. But one other thing I do want to show you guys. I'm going to try and do this. I'm hoping I don't accidentally drop it. Because the other thing is as I've mentioned before, that I do a lot of Star Wars building. And let me actually move off because that's the end of the facts. But one of the things that I got into was Legos. So my very first Star Wars Lego was, of course, the T-47 Speeder that was the set available. And it was re-released with, you can actually see here, Lando Calrissian's minifigure with the 20-year anniversary of Star Wars. So this was my first set that I actually got, and I built it myself. And I had so much fun. I did modify it. The blaster on the back, this is actually a modified one that I actually put together. And I actually got this piece here from Bricks and Minifigs up in Wheaton, Illinois. They basically sell a whole bunch of minifigures and stuff like that. So I actually collected a whole bunch of minifigures and made a variation on the Hoth battlefield. So I have a bunch of snow stormtroopers and stuff like that, but I basically made this with a bunch of the guys to actually showing that they're defending the battlefield and stuff like that from Hoth. And I thought it was a nice touch and accented the snowspeeder really well. So it's actually something that I really enjoy. And I keep meaning to. I actually have one of the Star Wars, Lego Star Wars video games. And it's one of the ones that I really enjoy playing. It's on my it's on my PS3 right now, and unfortunately, I don't get a chance to actually play with the PS3 on like TikTok for my gaming sessions because I don't know how to actually get the feed to go onto TikTok. I'm working on that right now. I know I need like a splitter or something like that to be able to, so I can see it on the screen here and then actually to be able to show it on the TikTok live. So I need to get an HDMI splitter and an HDMI adapter so I can do that. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to do it yet because it's just finding that kind of stuff. Oh, Okay, I already got a question, but yeah, I'm gonna try and get the video games up there. So, a question from Can't Sleep: if you could hang out with a Star Wars character, who would you choose? Oh, that's a loaded question because I don't just have one particular Star Wars character that I'm a fan of. I have a plethora of Star Wars characters that I'm a fan of. But if I had the choice, and this is just if I had the choice to sit down for a minute and have a conversation with them, I would absolutely love to sit down and have a conversation with three of my favorite characters if I could. And that would be Rex, Echo, and Fives. I would absolutely love to, you know, sit them down at one of the clone bars, buy them around a spatchka, and just hear their stories about what it was like to be on the battlefield, to fight against the separatists, to hear about their battle plans and stuff like that. I mean, that would be like, if I could have a chance to do that, that would be awesome. That would be a dream come true if I actually got to sit down with Rex, Fives, and Echo. And that's one of those things that you make yourself, you wonder, is that something that you could do at Galaxy's Edge? Like, could you sit down with an actor portraying your favorite characters and have an interaction like that? That would be a dream come true if I could actually do that. Now, I know that they have a lot of the primary characters, like I know Rey shows up there, and I've got an actress playing Rey. There's an actress I know playing Han Solo, Luke Skywalker, Leia, and of course there's somebody playing Chewbacca and a bunch of others. So I know that there's a lot of characters, and of course there's Kylo Ren and all the stormtroopers, and Vader shows up every once in a while. Boba Fett's there, and I know I recently saw some clips that Din Djarin and Grogu are available there. So I would love to interact with one of them. And someday when I get to Galaxy's Edge, I'm hoping to do that. So at some point in time, I'm hoping to get something like that. But I'm hoping that, the popularity of like a lot of the stuff is going to eventually bring that. Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they finally bring out the Bad Batch and, members of the other clones and stuff like that as characters to show up. Because, they've got stormtroopers, so that's easy. But it'd be really cool if they started bringing in, like, the clones and stuff like that. The real the fans that would really get to enjoy an interaction with them. I know that would be super cool for me. I mean, it's one thing to have a thing with the stormtroopers and all that, but if you could have like a scene where just me personally, I would love to see like a one-off or like a kind of a back and forth between like the clones and the stormtroopers, because there's an animosity there. And we got a little bit of that in Star Wars Rebels and Clone Wars and the Bad Batch, where they're basically, the clones are belittling the stormtroopers because they're obviously not as good at fighting as the clones were. For one, the clones could actually hit things, whereas the stormtroopers can't hit the side of a starship. So I always thought that would be really funny if they actually did that at Galaxy's Edge, where they had like the one-offs between the stormtroopers and the clones, which, me personally, that I really wish I could say that stuff is going on, but I would love for something like that to be going on, because I might make a video about that. I haven't decided yet, but if I'm going to do something like that, I definitely would want an interaction with somebody else doing it. So I'll definitely do a video or something like that, but I would love if they did like a back and forth kind of argument between stormtroopers and clones at Galaxy's Edge, because that would be hysterical. I might have to do a search and see if I can find it. If you could be one of the Star Wars characters, who would you be? Okay. If I'm going to answer that, then I can tell you right now. If I could cosplay as one of the characters, I've already started researching that. I want to do a cosplay as Fives, but I'm not going to be able to invest in the armor just for that full cosplay. So at the most I'm looking for is like a jogger suit, like a hoodie and pants, and then I add boots, gloves, and a helmet, and maybe a couple blasters and stuff like that. So I'd love to cosplay as Fives if I could. But if I actually was going to get the opportunity to be one of the Star Wars characters, and there's only one Star Wars character that for me I would truly want to portray, and that's Dash Rendar. And that's mainly, for those of you who don't know, he was the replacement for Han Solo in Shadows of the Empire, because they needed someone to help track down Boba Fett. So Leia hired Dash Rendar to actually track Boba Fett for finding out where Han's body was being transported to. And you actually find out that through the story that actually the video game of Shadows of the Empire actually starts during the Battle of Hoth, where Dash is actually working as a smuggler and a mercenary transport for the Rebel Alliance. He actually, just before the battle starts, he's actually drops off supplies to the Rebel Alliance, and then he actually takes part in the Battle of Hoth as one of the snowspeeder pilots. And we get this interaction and stuff like that. And then there's the story that takes place, that's happening while the whole story that's going on with Empire Strikes Back. So there's this whole story that's going on where Dash is a part of the Rebel Alliance, and he's doing missions for them and stuff like that. And one of them was actually tracking Boba Fett so they could figure out where he was going. And I thought that was super cool, in my opinion, just because there was this whole story with Dash, and was really one of those kind of cocky mercenary types. He wasn't a smuggler per se, but he was a gun for hire. So he's a quick draw. There's a lot of elements of Din Djarin that I always relate back to Dash Rendar, because he was one who was super quick on the draw, and he always was in a gunfight with these guys, and he always had a blaster rifle on his back and a pistol at his side. And he also had a droid co-pilot, because his the Outrider, which was a YT-1300 Corellian freighter, similar to the Millennium Falcon, but supposedly faster, more maneuverable. There's arguments that can be made about that. But I really liked his character, and the fact that he actually worked with the Rebel Alliance. He piloted an X-Wing, and he did a whole bunch of really great stuff. And the tragic part of it is what happens to him at the end of Shadows of the Empire. So I just feel it would be right, if I was going to get to play a character like that, I would love to actually be Dash Rendar, because I think he's the coolest. But that's just my personal opinion on that. There's tons of other characters from Star Wars that I'd love to be and portray if I could. But if I'm going to get a chance to cosplay, it's most likely it's going to be Fives, which I know I'm going to have stiff competition, because there's a lot of cosplayers out there that love being the clones, and they have the full armor and stuff like that. I just don't have the funds to be able to make that stuff on my own. And right now, if there's any cosplaying to be done, we're putting a lot of money in for my wife to be able to have her cosplay, which she's doing something for Marvel. And my cosplay, of course, my primary one that I do is Harry Dresden from the Dresden Files books. So I don't have an actual Star Wars cosplay that I do. That's why I'm researching right now, so I can actually be Fives. So I think I've tracked down what I need. The unfortunate thing is it's, of course, costs money, which I don't have a lot of right now. So it's always on layaway. At some point in time, I'll actually do the full get up and show it off, but I just haven't gotten there yet. So great questions. Thank you all for asking about that. I love answering those kinds of questions, because Star Wars lore and facts and stuff like that is one of my favorite things to talk about. So I love to talk about that stuff. So thank you for that. And there's something, if there's any other questions you guys would left, thank you all for all the gifts. I'm sorry if I didn't acknowledge you right away, but thank you all for the gifts. I really appreciate that. It's a great way to support me, and 17,000 likes. Thank you all so much for that. I really appreciate it. It's great when I get that kind of support, and thank you all for that. I'm still doing these every Sunday, and I really enjoy doing it. And then if you came in late and you didn't get to hear the full conversations that I had with everybody, I take this recording and I upload it. There's the link on my profile. I don't want to say the name of the location, but there's a website that I store the full version of this available, so you can listen to your heart's content and touch base on the thing, comment on facts and stuff like that. And I encourage you that if there's something that I get wrong in my facts, please call me out on it. Mention it, look it up yourselves. If I didn't get it right, then let me know. If there's a fact that you would like to hear about, comment on this video or comment on any of my videos about the Star Wars facts. If there's one that you'd like me to cover, I know that a few others have brought up certain things. Oh, thank you, Can't Sleep. Thank you. Oh, that's what it was. I just remembered. The one thing I wanted to do for today is a special mention, because, of course, today is Mother's Day. StarWars.com actually posted up about, for Mother's Day, that there was a recognition that was done of the mothers of Star Wars. So I didn't get enough time to do pictures and stuff like that, but I wanted to do a verbal mention of each of them. So First is Shimmy Skywalker. She was the mother of Anakin Skywalker, and her sacrifice and love shaped the saga's central figure. So I wanted to make sure I included that. Padme Amidala, who was the queen of Naboo, and she was a senator representative of Naboo, who died giving birth to Luke and Leia. So great recognition for Padme. Leia Organa Solo, who she was the princess from Alderaan. She was a general of the Rebel Alliance, and she was the mother of Ben Solo, who sadly turns into Kylo Ren. But we want to acknowledge Leia for giving birth to a great character that eventually does fall to the dark side, but does return. And then Beru Lars, who is the aunt who raised Luke Skywalker and was his surrogate mother until, unfortunately, she was killed by the Empire. CR, welcome in. Next, Hera Syndulla, who is a Twi'lek pilot and mother to Jason Syndulla, who she birthed from her relationship with Kanan Jarrus, a former Jedi, balancing rebellion and parenting to become one of the great leaders of the Rebel Alliance. I wanted to make sure I included that. Sue Lochran, who is the wife of clone defector Cut Lochran. For those of you who don't know who Cut is, he was featured in, I believe it was either season 1 or season 2 of Clone Wars. He also shows up in the second episode of the Bad Batch season 1. Go check it out. It's really cool. And she was mother to Sheikah and Jake, who were their kids. And I highly recommend looking up their story. It's really cool. I think they actually got something done in the comics as well. I'm not 100%. I'd have to research that a little more. Next is Ursa Wren. She's the Mandalorian mother of Sabine Wren. Navigating clan politics and loyalty, she raised 2 children, and one of them turned out to be a hero of the rebellion, and if Ahsoka has anything to say about it, possibly the next Mandalorian Jedi. So that's pretty friggin' cool right there. Next, Bria Organa, or Queen of Alderaan, and the adoptive mother to Leia, who trained and tutored Leia to become the strong political leader she became, as well as a passionate leader of the rebellion. And the last 2, most importantly, Lyra Erso, wife to Galen Erso and mother to Jyn Erso, who sacrificed herself to protect her husband and daughter, who was gunned down by the Empire. And her sacrifice allowed Galen Erso to create and sabotage the Death Star, as well as Jyn Erso's sacrifice that she made in order to make sure that the Death Star was destroyed. And finally, the last mother is Miramir. She was Rey's, Palpatine Skywalker's mother. We only got a few views of her in Rise of the Skywalker, and we can look at her and realize that the reason why we have Rey and why Rey was able to continue the Jedi is because of the sacrifice that her and her husband made in leaving Rey on Jakku so that she could grow and become the great leader that she is in Star Wars. So wanted to make sure I included those characters for Mother's Day. If you want to research it yourself, do a search for StarWars.com for Mother's Day. There is a more in-depth view of all of those people. So I highly recommend checking them out. The information is really good. I didn't want to include all of it, so definitely go and check it out. The stuff's really great. And StarWars.com and Wikipedia.com have a plethora of information, and I can't always include all of it in my facts, so I highly recommend going and checking it out. It's great information to look up, and it's always, for me, it's a great joy because it's constantly updated, and by watching the Star Wars shows and movies, that lore and those facts are constantly changing and updating, and as you know, stuff that was in Legends transfers over. Like, eventually we're going to have so much more that's going to be involved with Star Wars because you have so much of the facts of Star Wars that are constantly changing from, you've got Star Wars Visions, which is on Disney Plus, as well as Galaxy of Adventures, where they alter the story slightly and give it a different look and feel. And there's, of course, all the Legends books and comics that are available, so you can read alternate, aspects that happened. And the thing that you always have to remember about the legend stuff is that it was canon at one point, no longer, but it does give an aspect of a multiverse of Star Wars. And you always have to remember that the beginning of Star Wars always says a long time ago in a galaxy far, far away. So you always have to remember that Star Wars is in the past. So everything we get to find out is because it's happening and we're just getting the information on it. So you always that's why I always remember the great line from Yoda where he says, "It's difficult to see, always in motion is the future." So the future is always changing, which is the reason why we're getting all the information that we're getting. And that's the reason why I see a lot of naysayers and stuff like that on the internet saying Star Wars was just the original movies. It was just these. It's not this. It's like, dude, seriously. If you want to look at it like that, all you have to look is a linear aspect of space, time, and travel. The reason why we're getting these stories is because they happened centuries ago and we're just getting them now. Okay? That's easily how you can interpret them if you want to. And if you can't see it for what it is, then just don't get wrapped up in that. I mean, Star Wars is supposed to be fun. Star Wars is supposed to be amazing. Star Wars is supposed to inspire. It's supposed to give people an outlet from reality. It's supposed to give them a way to see the world in a new way. To see a possible future and the strength that people have, the wiseness that they're able to come into through the sharing of information, and to be able to think outside the box. Yeah, there's a lot of people that say that, books can do it just as well as movies, but movies give you a way to experience something that some people aren't able to do. And this is something that I have constantly heard from people, is that there's a lot of people who, when they read a book, they just read the words. They're not able to see what's being described. Now, me being the person that I am, I can read a book about Star Wars, and I actually see the movie in my head. I actually see the characters, I see the ships, I see them flying through space. I see all that in my head. I have a movie in my head that is Star Wars. Amber, welcome in. So when I see that, when I read that and I see the comics and stuff like that, it just expands the vision that's in my head. And I love that. I love being able to see how someone else sees what I read or what I think about. Now, granted, when somebody tells me about a midichlorian, I have no idea what that is. And when it first came into Phantom Menace and they brought up the whole concept that the register of the Force can actually be measured in a person because of a midichlorian count, that is really cool, in my opinion, because that means that explains how everybody is connected and how the universe is connected from all living things, including cognitive sentient beings. There are midichlorian counts, which means there are plants, animals, entire planetary systems that are filled with midichlorians, which connects everything, which means it goes beyond the planets. It goes out into space where there is a vacuum, which means that these are chemicals and organisms that can survive in space, which, for all we know for a fact that there are tardigrades, the little multi-armed little bears that you see at microscopic level. Those are able to survive in vacuum. Okay? Do you understand that concept? These are creatures that are able to survive in vacuum. For all we know, tardigrades could be the midichlorians that they're talking about in Star Wars. That's something a lot of people don't even think about. That is how to actually think about the entire aspect of how the universe is made up. That there are microscopic creatures that actually can survive in vacuum. That there is life outside of our own planet. It's just at a microscopic level. But that doesn't mean that it's not there. We've already proven that it's there. So you can't just see Star Wars as one thing, because it's a way of interpreting things that people can understand. And that's the reason why I love Star Wars so much, because it gives you a way to see things from a new perspective, from another way of seeing things. Like, you can see prejudice in Star Wars. You can see politics in Star Wars. You can see criminality in Star Wars. You can see so much in Star Wars that we share in our own lives. There's so much there. And you don't just have to see one side of it. Yes, you can see good fighting bad, darkness versus light. But you can also see the grays, the intermediary of so many other things. Family values, honor, devotion to a principle. You can see all this in Star Wars. There's so much more there than just an intergalactic science fiction story. There's a lot more there. And that's part of the reason why Star Wars is loved by so many and why it's appreciated by so many is because there's so much more there than people really understand. So that's my little spiel. I wanted to make sure I got that out because I love Star Wars, and I know some of you are probably not going to agree with me on all this, which is just fine. Everybody is allowed to have their opinion. There's nothing wrong with having an opinion and about seeing things in a certain way. So I understand if you don't agree with me. I understand if you think I'm crazy and talking about this stuff. I've already admitted to the fact that I'm weird. I've made multiple videos about the fact that I'm weird, and I'm happy being weird. So you can take my stuff for what it is. You can accept my stuff as being just from a weird guy on TikTok. You're more than welcome to. I'm not going to be offended by it. It's my opinion. If you don't agree with it, it's okay. I'm expressing my opinion. If you don't agree with it, I'm fine. Everybody has their own flag to fly, and everybody can be a freak in their own way. There's nothing bad about that. You be you, I'll be me, and we'll all be happy. So thank you all for coming on tonight and listening to me go on about Star Wars and all this stuff. I really appreciate you all. For all the mothers out there, happy Mother's Day. I hope you had a fantastic day, and I really enjoy getting to share this with you. If you enjoy listening to me, please comment on my videos, shoot me messages. If you want me to cover specific facts or stuff about Star Wars, please shoot me messages. Let me know. Can't Sleep Clown, thank you so much for coming in, and I really enjoy sharing this with all of you, and I'm so thrilled that I actually get to do this just for fun. And I'm not, even though, yeah, I'm getting gifts and stuff like that, I'm technically not getting that much money for this. So I'm doing this more for fun. I'm not doing this for money. I'm doing this for fun because I love Star Wars. I love sharing this stuff with you. And the fact that you guys are sitting here listening to me, that's just a bonus for me in and of itself. So thank you all for coming out tonight. I will be loading this onto the link that's on my profile. So if you missed out the majority of this, it will be available through that. So please check it out. Let me know your thoughts. And if you have new facts that you'd like me to cover, let me know. I would be more than happy to create more stuff about this because I love researching this stuff and talking about it. So I have no problem looking into it. So thank you all so much. Have a great night, and I will see you next Sunday. For those of you who are following me, I'm not going to be gaming tonight, but I will be gaming hopefully during the week. So thanks a lot so much for coming by, and I will see you all next time. Thank you so much. Bye-bye. Good night.